Here's the deal. This is our video commentary. I do these weekly, and it's in line with the commentaries that I do on, obviously, on Charisma News and other news sites. But today, I've got an interesting subject, but I want you to listen because I want to start by saying this. This is a calendar of John Wayne. I have a little grandson. We've got 7, and he's coming over here in about a week. And recently, my wife and him, they were out there playing cops and robbers. And the funny thing was, this little 4-year-old, when my wife was saying things to him, he kept saying, John Wayne says, well, John Wayne says, that was his big line, because I guess he saw a cowboy movie with John Wayne. But for him, John Wayne is an authoritative figure. And we know that when John Wayne, if you ever watch Turner Classic, you see some of the movies, he symbolized strength and masculinity, and when there were problems, we're going to deal with it. Well, he's going to get my grandson this calendar, but today I think we need to just step back a minute and just say, are we really rising to the occasion with some of the problems in this country? And one is being put forth as it's going to end our country. It's going to end the world. We've only got 10 years left. Now, I don't want to do anything in mockery, but I want to talk to you just a little bit and then refer you to the article and the podcast on Charisma News on 10 essentials concerning climate change, hoax or horror. You'll see all the points to ponder. But you know what? This is a time where we're really needing to understand, is this really the most pressing problem in the world? Let me read you. You know what Barack Obama said about climate change? He said, quote, there's one issue that will define the contours of this century more dramatically than any other, the urgent threat of changing climate. Now, some people say amen to that. Others say, oh my, environmental wackos, man, you're getting all hysterical about this, you're getting fearful. And you know what? There's a doomsday clock. I don't know if you've heard this, but they used to gauge things in minutes. Well, now, just recently, they said, here's like a clock. And they say, we're down to 100 seconds till apocalypse now. 100 seconds. And you hear many politicians, and they're using terms like, I'm not going to have children. You know why? I don't think we should, because we probably only have 10 years left. And then Time Magazine. What, they put a young 16, I believe, maybe 17-year-old Greta Thunberg from Sweden, and she's hysterical and angry and telling us we better get this thing right and everything because of global warming and climate change, where the planet's going. Actors, they'll say scientists all agree. And then you hear terms like fracking and carbon footprint and carbon emissions, and you might say, I'm intimidated. I don't understand what they're saying. But I want to just ask you, is this all legitimate, or is it a hoax? We need to be at peace. God doesn't give us a spirit of fear. Now, I'm going to share 10 points to ponder with you on this, and you can make the call. Now, number 1 is this. In the beginning, God. When people get upset and hysterical and fearful about this, you know what? I just say, well, in the beginning, God. That's where it all goes. And as far as temperature changes and all the rest of that, that's cyclical. We need to understand that. You know what it tells us in Genesis chapter 8? I'm quoting, while the earth remains, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, and day and night will not cease. The earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. And you know what? The heavens belong to the Lord our God, but the earth he's given to the sons of men. God is in charge. I'm not going to be fearful. You know what? I'm standing here today. I've got my Hawaiian shirt on. It's raining, and it's a little nippy today. But just 1 week ago, do you know what? When I did this commentary, the interesting thing was it was 70 degrees. Today it's 50. A few days ago, it was in the 20s. It's raining. And you say, well, Larry, what are we supposed to do? Well, you know what? We don't panic. When I was in Moscow, I walked the streets and I saw the people adapt there. I saw grandmothers there eating ice cream, and it was the most biting cold ever. I never experienced anything, but they just were going about their business. I even bought my little Russian hat. At times I can wear it when it gets cold here, but they seem to weather the problem there. And I just say, be at peace. You don't need to get perturbed and upset because of weather changes. And if you look at history, a lot of it is cyclical. but that doesn't mean that we disregard our environment. And I've been an environmentalist. I go back to 1971 when I was student body president at Cleveland State University. I brought in an activist, Ralph Nader, to speak. One of my heroes, Theodore Roosevelt, environmentalist. And I would say, yes, we do have a responsibility. We give account to God because we're to steward the earth. That's what it tells us in Genesis. We're to subdue the earth, and you and I have a responsibility. So that's something of a God-given assignment. Number 3, we should be resourceful and we should be innovative. We have some solar-powered, items, and I thank God for the idea of electric cars. I don't have one, but you know what? It used to be maybe 20, 30 miles. Now they're well over 100. And that's a way we can save. And we do want to be good stewards in terms of light and energy and gas and everything. When I throw something on the ground, when I hit the receptacle trash, if I miss it, I pick it up. I'm stirred in a negative way when I see certain leftist groups protesting, yelling, smashing, destroying things in the name of their cause, socialism, and you have no rights, and we're the tolerant ones, and I look at that, and when they finish their protest, there's garbage. It's an absolute mess. And yet I see a March for Life. You'll have 100,000, whatever it may be, and it's clean as a whistle. We're called to care and be good stewards of our environment. Also, people try to say scientists are all in agreement. No, they're not. And I want to recommend to you, and when you go to the article I've done, you'll see I recommend a wonderful documentary by, John Stossel, investigative reporter. He's done a great one. You can click on and you can get it. And I have a dear friend for 45 years, Christopher Rogers. Yeah, and Christopher Rogers, they premiered in France a wonderful documentary called Climate Hustle. You can get the information, but it's a resource so that you're intelligent and you'll know exactly what's being done. Now, one of the points I make in the article is this, that there are people today that instead of, calling for cooperation and agreement and constructive solutions, they're angry. They're promoting things in a hysterical way. Some of you know the Time Person of the Year, 16-year-old Greta Thunberg. Well, you'll see one of the points that are, in the podcast is Greta was a depressed girl, had a hard time, didn't speak. She was interviewed and her father told about her background. But when she discovered the climate change cause, she came to life. She had something that got her excited, and she was going to be an activist. And when you listen, I don't want to be scolded and lectured by a young girl. I'll listen to what she says, but you and I have to be the same. Certain politicians, they'll tell us things, and then they jump in their private jets, or they'll tell us, this and that, and then they jump on their yachts. See, don't be intimidated. Don't be fearful. And when people use terminology and say all the scientists agree, that's deception. That is not true. People are trying to politicize this, and what they'll do is they'll say we need to get rid of all that, gas and energy and fracking and coal and all that. Folks, to do something like that, there's millions of workers and industries in America, and we're energy independent right now. For the first time, this is a wonderful thing. So you can't just throw this out. And then you've got a politician, a person that was a bartender just a few years ago, and is an avowed socialist that'll say Green New Deal. But you look at some of the points on the Green New Deal, and you'll see it in the article, and I encourage you to go there. I mean, it's absurd. Not just the amount of money, but the whole idea of refurbishing and restructuring houses all throughout America. And, the total number is, really, I can't even quote how many buildings, 100, a million, whatever it may be. They're talking totally refurbished buildings and that. And let's get rid of the planes going over to Hawaii. Let's have a high-speed rail. Give everybody $1,000. There's a political side to this, folks, you need to be aware of. And the whole idea is a globalistic government control of our resources and our wealth, redistribution of wealth. So I commend to you the article, and I also commend to you one of the points I made was regarding a man from the state in which I live, Al Gore. Now you might say, yeah, I remember, didn't he get an award for inconvenient truth? He's like a crusader in this area. But how accurate is Al Gore? I call your attention to the article on Charisma News because I took the 10 predictions that he made over a decade ago. And Al, he's on his way to the bank regularly because he's making hundreds of millions of dollars off of this cause. Forbes magazine, and you'll see the hyperlink you can go to in the article, they did an expose on Al Gore. And of course, through his boards and initiatives that he's involved in, and then the movie and all of this, and speaking honorariums, whatever, the guy is very, very rich in the hundreds of millions of dollars. But predictions that he's made, I mean, really, when I look at some of the things like this, remember when he said polar bears extinction was coming? Actually, they're increasing. Remember when he said, temperature increases due to CO2? You can't always follow. But all 10 of the predictions that he made, guess what? None of them came to pass. Now, global warming, climate change, we do need to be alert and we do need to be sensitive. But when people start coming on the scene and say, lights will be going out in 10 years, I don't even think you should have children. And children come home from school, Bobby, and they're scared because they're hearing these predictions. We're going to just have to go back to candles. We don't know what we're going to do, how we're going to handle this thing right now. Folks, like John Wayne, he responded when there was a challenge. And I say we need to seek God who's in charge. We need to recognize cyclical seasons, hot, cold, all the rest of that. And we need to look to God and he will guide us. But we're not going to be manipulated by things that are not accurate or true. So my people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge. Here's the deal. Go to Charisma News, check out the article, and then check out the podcast for an amplification and an education in this area. So God's glorified, we as the people of God are engaging, and we are equipped to confidently, winsomely, and really intelligently, from a biblically informed view, help people.